Here I am at the Salt Lake Cemetery. There's President Monson right there. I am at a John Taylor. I have family searched him. He's not related in any way to the prophet. But I want to make a statistical, a mathematical point here that I think is very hard to deny for those who I think either put the work in or are smart enough to realize what I am saying here. When I first found this, I did not know something that I'll get to. It got a lot stronger long after I found it. Hold on, there's a truck here. But even the first time I found this, I still believed it. And I'm going to get to all that. I want to point out something. That this individual is not related to John Taylor. His name is John Taylor. And I found out months after I discovered this, that his death date is the very day that the prophet John Taylor was ordained president of the church, where he officially received all of the powers, all of the keys, and all the authority that being the president of the church gives you. Obviously, it's more authority than the apostles because you have the right to exercise all of the priesthood keys. So all of the powers are invested in the president of the church. He leads the church. This is the way that the Lord has organized the church, with the help of his counselors and all the apostles and general authorities, etc. So his death date is John Taylor's ordination. Before I knew that, I was already sold on this stone because he has the November 7th pattern on an 1805, which is the prophet Joseph Smith's birth year. So that's right before Joseph Smith was born. He was in the belly. The prophet Joseph Smith was in the belly. So this stone is very unusual because even in old areas, it's hard to get an 1805. Here you have two. You get John Taylor's pattern with mine. November and the 1 and November and the 7. So you perfectly get that. So I was already sold on that, and I'll get to the reasons why. Then you have May 15th, which denotes the name Aaron because the priesthood of Aaron was restored. So the Lord is saying Aaron, 1805, the birth year of Joseph Smith in Sharon, Vermont. I have no doubt about this one either. It took me a while. Then look at the death date. Switch the 8 and the 9, and you have November 9th, 1980. 2 days after my birth. So the Lord is working with what he got here, and in fact, to be honest with you, considering all that, it pretty much could not have got stronger. And I will get to that here in a second. So you have May 15th, Aaron, 1805. Birth year of Joseph Smith. You have my November 17th on a prophet's birth year. The prophet's birth year. Joseph Smith, the prophet of the restoration. Hold on a second. Oh, people just keep driving through here with their dogs. Okay, so I'm trying to be clear, trying to make sure I emphasize and explain what is important to do so. And in fact, the November 9th, 1890, it took me a while to understand that and accept that. The Lord planned this. I have literally no doubt about this. How many people by the name of the prophet John Taylor died the same day that John Taylor was ordained prophet of the church in Utah? Died in Utah. And with the same name. I'm willing to bet there was only one. This was planned. And if not, it don't matter. I mean, it's like 2 or 3. It can only be one. I mean, almost nobody was dying in Utah. And then, in fact, they didn't have statehood then. But let's just say this territory, this specific area, what is now Utah, just to kind of extend it. How many people with the name John Taylor died the same year, the same day that the prophet John Taylor was ordained president of the church? Then the same stone has a November 7th pattern on a prophet's birth year. It also has the prophet John Taylor's pattern, November 1st. Then you have the May 15th denoting the name Aaron on a prophet's birth year. Then you have the November 9th, and I believe that the Lord is saying 1980. November 7th on a prophet's birth year. Aaron on Joseph Smith's birth year. November 9th, 1980. The prophet John Taylor's very day of ordination. Almost for surely the only John Taylor that died on the day that the prophet John Taylor was ordained. So here's why I was already believing in this. Because look, the very next one. The very next one has a Verda, which is the same pattern as Vera, and my mom's maiden name is Wooten. So my mom's maiden name also has WOO, and then you get the November 13th going diagonal. That's weak, I admit that. But to get a 7/1980 is, I said in a video I made the other day, I said that it's harder than a November 7th. I was wrong. It's far harder. I've only found 3 November 7ths, 1980s. I found one recently by Apostle Lyman. I almost never see these. Look at, on the same stone, right next to that. Look at this. And look, January is a 1. So it's got all my digits, except it's missing the 1. So you have the Vera pattern, and then 1, 2, 3 down from the John Taylor, you have another May 15th, which not only denotes Aaron, but it defies the odds to get 2 like that. And then in between those, you have 2 prophets' birth years. That could be coincidence. I wish it was a little closer to Benson's, or a lot closer. Now, look at this. 2 down from John Taylor. Look. My father's birthday, October 9th, with another November 9th. Is he tying it to that stone? It has the November 9th. I won't say for sure, but on the October 9th, there's no way that's coincidence. There's no way this is coincidence. The only John Taylor in the Utah territory that died the same day that the prophet John Taylor was ordained. This is not coincidence. There's simply no way. Now look at this. The very next one has 2 prophets' birthdays, which not only is symbolic to the message the Lord is sending, but it defies the odds. I mean, it defies the odds to get 2 prophets' birthdays on one person, the birth and the death. And I was born at Holy Cross, right down there. One of the midwives' names was a Margaret, spelled the same way. Now look at this. The very next one, look at this. My mom's name, Vera. There's simply no way. And the Lord's not even done. Look, the very next one, a November 6th, a future prophet's birthday right next to mine. Close to my mom's birthday, September 13th, which is an ordination of Lorenzo on Heber J. Grant's ordination year. And I'm not going to show everything because I got to hurry. This one has some interesting stuff. I family searched it. Here's the last one in the row before the street. Look, you have my brother's birthday, June 15th. You have my dad's birthday, October 9th. And look, you have my mom's birthday. Look, all of them right in a row. Boom, boom, boom. June 15th, October 9th, September 12th. My mom, my dad, my brother. And you have a prophet's birthday, June 23rd. Let me see, I forgot if I looked at all these carefully. You could say, out of that one, you get a 7/1980 pattern or a July 2nd, 1980 derivative. I'm talking derivatives here, but forget that. It doesn't matter. Even if I'm correct or not, it doesn't matter. And if I didn't have the mind that I had, I would never see any of these. And the Lord prepared me to see them through a variety of mechanisms that He's used on me. From current disorders, trials, challenges, the family that I was raised in, and all kinds of things. Please don't come here. Ah, he's coming in. Okay. So here, across the street, I want to show one other thing here. So there's the John Taylor. Here's another Vera. That's not normal. Again, coincidences happen to get two Veras that close. She forms a line with that November 27th. There's two November 7th patterns in this area. I'm going to show them to you. She forms a line with that. It's the little flat one into Holy Cross, almost the middle. There is P Street. You go down P Street, it goes into the center of Holy Cross on the side of David O. McKay's house. Look. And is there any doubt what family? Look, Denison. Dennis. That means the son of Dennis. That's what Dennis it means. It means the son of Dennis. So that forms a perfect line. I've studied it. I'll go down there and I'll try to hurry. And on top of that, it has the year Holy Cross moved, 1882, and especially 1883, moved into its current block. You have an Aaron pattern next to it with the prophet's birth year, Joseph Fielding Smith, and you have my grandfather's birth year, 1914. I won't count that. Here is the only November 7th. You have to go way over there. Almost, no, quite a ways. Here it is. Now look at this. The death date of John happens to be a prophet's birth year, and the death date of Mary is a prophet's birth month and birth year. There's like 3 of those in this area. It's very unusual. I'll show the other one. Here's my dad's birthday. And here's another September 20th, 1873, 12 days after McKay's birth. Here is Harold B. Lee's month and year. Look, March 1st on my birth year symbols. Switch the 8 and the 0. Lorenzo, an Italian prophet's name, with an August 12th. I'll show one more. Why? I'm not going to show all here because those get a little more complicated. I'll lose anyone who watches it. You have a Vera, my parents' birth or sailing year, 1973, with a July 2nd going diagonal. My patriarchal blessing date with a herald, prophet's name. Again, most of that could be coincidence. Here's why the Vera is not including other reasons I'm not going to show. It hits this one. Another Margaret, which is 4 days after George Albert Smith's birth. And it has Dallin H. Oak's birth pattern, the 1932, August 12th, 1932. And then it goes right into this, which is next to my dad's birthday. So Why is the November 7th with these prophetic signals in the same row as the Vera? I could just prove it too. I mean, there's none. There's none. I've searched. Those don't have dates. Look, August 4th, there's a prophet's birthday. I've searched all that. There's most of those don't have. They're too old. Look. Most of these don't have dates. I think this one does, a soldier. June 3rd, nothing. Nothing. And I can't wait for the Lord to heal me. Nothing. 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 And there is stuff over here that I don't believe is coincidence. So why does he always order it in a way where it makes sense? The November 7th reinforces the Vera in the same row. There it is. And then the Vera forms a line with this November 7th pattern into Holy Cross. And that's my parents' sealing date. There's simply no way that this is coincidence. And I will just add that the designs around Monson are shocking, mind-boggling. It's literally impossible. There's no way. This is not coincidence. And when I accepted these as divine, including across the street, I already knew about those. I did not know that was John Taylor's ordination date. The Lord strengthened it. He planned it. And he knew I would catch on little by little. And look, November 9th, 1980, that's what he's saying. November 7th, pattern on Joseph Smith's birth year. My dad's house is, the street that runs into his house, red zinc, is 5880, 880, 880. The other end of Blue Iron has a 980, and the other end has a 780, like this. You see what the Lord's doing? These are not possible. The Verda. Why are my symbols far stronger than November 7th? And my parents immediately surrounding this stone in a manner that is orderly. It's not one's 2 rows over there. The October 9th is 2 rows over there. The Vera is way over there. Why? And it's highly compacted. Why is the May 15th? Why is there 2? Elizabeth denotes the name Aaron. She gave birth to John the Baptist, who restored the priesthood of Aaron on May 15th, 1829. He's saying Aaron. That's literally what he's saying right here. He's saying Aaron on a prophet's birth year. The prophet's birth year. The great one. The prophet of the restoration. The man. Joseph Smith, who was foreordained to that position. Every single detail of his life was planned. It was necessary. He had a third grade education when he translated the plates. That was necessary to God. That was very important to God, whose work it is. It was critical that he came from a basically largely poor family who didn't live in Rochester, who didn't live in Syracuse, who didn't live in New York City or Albany, who lived after having moved from Vermont in God-forsaken places, who lived on the outskirts of a then even far smaller town than it already is. And when they had to go into town, I mean, that was often a task. Coincidence? He had a limp most of his life. He was on crutches for about 1 year after the miraculous surgery. There were no doctors in the country that knew how to deal with his bone infection. In fact, all the doctors told him that they had to amputate his leg. And do you see how the Lord was preparing that doctor for Joseph? What was his name? Nathan Smith, maybe? I think the last name was a Smith. But do you see that was not a coincidence, and how the Lord prepared everything to show forth the miracle, to astonish people? And we've become so desensitized to it in the church. I mean, even those of us who have strong testimonies of the prophet, and who even understand the significance of it and how miraculous it was. We've heard thousands of stories about it. Thousands, even when we feel the Spirit. Even when we feel the Spirit strongly. We compartmentalize it, I think, a lot, some more than others. And we, in this church, above any people in any church, should believe that his greatest miracles are ahead, before the second coming. I don't even know what's wrong with most LDS. It's like a traditional type of thing, like a third grade type of thing, where you just pay your dues to the club, where you kind of get the social cred and you sit in the class and sit your butt down, and all this phony baloney. Obviously, going to church is important. Helping people from the bottom of your heart is important. Lifting them, inspiring them, strengthening them, setting an example for them of what a disciple of Jesus Christ actually, really, truly is. There's no such thing as keeping covenants when you utterly disregard that. You can go ahead and check the boxes all you want and think, oh, I got it, and God has blessed me. And he has, because he's perfect. Heavenly Father is perfectly fair. He's perfectly just, and he's perfectly merciful beyond all description. But that doesn't mean that you have all the blessings. That doesn't mean that he who has perfected justice and embodies justice and divine law, and who's overseeing our eternal growth to the extent that we allow him, is not going to cook some trials up for you in accordance with some of your secret thoughts, your secret behaviors. I'm of the opinion, including myself, that we all need to look more inward than we really do and humble ourselves. This includes me, and I try it all the time. A lot of LDS are not like this. And I'm saying that as somebody who believes that the best people are in this church. It's not even close. It's not even close. And when you consider the leaders that God has given this people, we are a spoiled people in many ways. I was more speaking in terms of the leadership. And spiritually, in the hand of God upon the church, but we're also spoiled in ways Brigham Young spoke up in some of his concerns about our materialism and how it's desensitized so many people. There's not a lot of serious spiritual giants in the church. Serious. And there's a lot of people who are spiritual on some level or another, and there's a lot of great people. But I'm of the opinion that first of all, people need to be lifted. People need to be heard. They need to be respected. They need to be loved. You need to point the good things out about that person. Otherwise, you never, ever have a right in any way to correct or criticize that person. That is literally devilish. And I mean literally. The Savior is the complete opposite of this. And what did the Lord say through Revelation? That it is the nature and disposition of almost all men, as soon as they get a little authority, what do? It goes to their head. I truly believe that the Lord is in the process right now for the second coming, for the 7 plagues, for the gospel which will be preached to the Gentile nations when the New World Order is set up, and you can see it happening and forming now. The 4th beast of Daniel's dream, which is a combination of the 3 other beasts, the British Empire, the USSR, the European Union, and this New World Order that is soon going to come to pass and rain hell down on Christianity and the saints. I truly believe that America is going to civil war. The Lord is going to greatly cleanse this land. It's anyone's guess all of how he does it and the order. I don't know. But he's going to do it. And he's going to make this a much more safe haven for righteous power and purposes, including moving church headquarters and the New Jerusalem. When the Antichrist begins his ascendancy and all the wicked powers in Europe unite, we know Armageddon ends with 200 million man army descending upon the Jews in Israel. And then the Lord appears and rains rocks down on their heads because he's perfect. And he embodies righteousness to the most majestic degree you could ever imagine. And he will utterly defeat all sin and all wickedness. And by the way, this includes in the church. Why do you think the Lord has planned to move church headquarters to Missouri? That's doctrine. That's official. They don't talk about it. Maybe everyone doesn't understand it, but that's official church doctrine. Church headquarters is being moved to Missouri before the second coming. The foundations of the New Jerusalem, and much of it, at least, will be built We know this. We know this. And I am fully, no doubt, God is going to humble this people on a level they don't see coming. Most of them are too haughty. They're too insulated. They believe they're too righteous. They lack charity, which says pretty much a lot. When your first impulse is to criticize, when your first impulse is to find fault, you're showing a shocking amount about yourself. I know that I have things that the Lord wants me to share with the leaders of the church. And at some point, they're going to catch on and they're going to hear it out. And the only reasons that I would make any serious attempts at doing so is because, one, I know that's how I'm going to be healed. And two, to plant the seed. Not that it necessarily needs to be planted, but considering how complicated and how rare my situation is, I'm pretty sure that's how the Lord is going to do it. By the way, look at that. These people died the same day? Larson? Joseph F. Smith's death symbol, November 19th. November, Scott's month and year. And then that's a president of the church's birth year. Oh, this is highly interesting, actually. And then that has, you could say, the 1980 pattern. September 27th, also another president of the church's death. That's not strong enough for me to rule with. But, well, I've searched all this. I've searched all this. I've searched all this. Look at this. What are the odds? And by the way, if I recall correctly, and I do have like 2-hour video in this plot, this is the only Aaron in the entire plot, literally. This is a very old area. So like Jane Manning, the black miners right over there. Brigham Young's brother is in this row, actually. Brigham Young's brother is in this row, right there. One of the flat ones. And no, I don't think that's coincidence. This Aaron is not coincidence. It's got my patriarchal blessing year. I didn't plan on showing all this. And look, it's the stone most aligned with the prophet. It's a little more to the left. And in fact, it forms a line with a Vera. I'm not going to show all that because this video is way, way too long. But I will. Looks like there's a new grave here. So might get a new stone or a new update. This person was born November 6th, or died November 6th, 1940. That's the very day Uchtdorf was born. Super, super, super rare. Same row as the Aaron. Coincidence? His birth date is November 27th. So now you have a November 7th pattern. This lady, one of her middle names is Vera. I guess she kept the, I don't know, the maiden last name. I don't know, but it's Vera. It's my mom's. And I forgot if that's in November, but because Benson was ordained in November. But anyways, it don't matter. Oh my goodness, you gotta be, what the, whoa. Oh my goodness, how did I never notice that? Holy cow. I never noticed this because I didn't know George Albert Smith's ordination until the last few months. It's got 2 prophets' birth years, Joseph Fielding and McKay, with an ordination with an Aaron pattern right next to those. And there's a couple November 7ths. There's only 2 anywhere over here. There's a couple more over there. And then there's 3 in that corner. There's none over there. They form lines into Monson. Look at this. Wow. Something, see? And look how the Lord is not done here. This is all premortal planning, engineering, blueprint, in accordance with many purposes, how he's going to school individuals and stuff of that nature. Wow. Just kitty corner from the Vera symbol. So her middle name was Vera. The November 27th, which is a November 7th pattern, and the day my parents were sealed on a November 27th, and Uchtdorf's November 6, 1940. Look, it's got the only Claudia in the entire plot, literally. Literally the only one. This is an old area, Mormon Pioneer, old area, look. A Claudia with a Harold, and a George Those were two names of presidents of the church, their first name. Huh. I already knew about that. I wasn't going to show it, but it's not coincidence. There's a lot of stuff over here. Wow. Like I said, there's 3 November 7th over here. One is over there, one is on this right here. And that they form lines in the Monson. But I don't want to show them because let me see one. There's one that's kind of simple though. It's my dad's name with a November 7th. It's a Dennis. It's right over here somewhere, but I got a 2-hour video and then another like maybe 30-minute video and then another shorter. However, I will show one more. So all the prophets in this cemetery form lines with other prophets into Holy Cross except 3. The 3 prophets that don't form a line into Holy Cross, that don't form a line with another prophet in the Holy Cross, for some reason they form a line with somebody else that has 1, November 7th, and 2, something very, very rare. And I'll show you right here. Joseph Smith. His death date is November 7th, 1915. Now look at this. It's a perfect angle. There's P Street, goes into the middle of Holy Cross. Look. So it would just slightly, little by little, just continue to go down, basically almost into the middle of Holy Cross. If this was like right here, it misses Holy Cross. Maybe even here. If I'm going by, if it was, see there's Monson. If it was like right here, oh, yeah, misses Holy Cross big time. Even maybe here. Yeah. Here it might. Look at how perfect. If it was just feet, basically, 5 feet in one direction, 10 feet in the other, it misses Holy Cross. Why? Joseph Smith, the symbol from the prophet Monson, with a November 7th into Holy Cross.